Hi everybody, it's Katie back with another episode of my vlog. And first of all, before we get started with today's vlog episode, sorry I missed uploading something last Thursday. We just had a crazy busy few days around here and it was pretty challenging, and I decided the thing that was gonna just fall out of the mix was me doing a vlog post. So I try not to do that, but it does happen every once in a while, and as I like to say right here on my vlog, don't beat yourself up about it if you don't get every single thing on the list done, right? Right. All right, guys, it's Sunday, which means it's time for the Cinema Club Sunday Roundup. I told you last week on Easter that we were going to be watching Who Framed Roger Rabbit from 1998 as our Easter movie. Rabbits, right? I hope all of you have seen this movie. I can't imagine a world in which people who are watching my vlog have not seen Who Framed Roger Rabbit, but just in case you haven't, this is the groundbreaking mixed live action and animation movie that came out in 1998, featuring basically everybody from bigwig cartoon history from the Disney and Warner Brothers and Tex Avery and a whole bunch of other historic animation studios sides of things. Of course, it is the story of a detective, Eddie Valiant, who is in Los Angeles and is hired to investigate. Well, it starts out with just an extramarital affair, maybe, but then it turns into, of course, as these things do, something much more politically intriguing. And we follow our hero, the detective, through Toontown, where toons are, it's like cartoons are alive, and the short cartoons that they're making in Hollywood are like live action movies. It's pretty fun. Again, I'm assuming all of you have seen it, so I'm not going to run down all the technical stuff. I'm just going to say it holds up incredibly well. I had not seen it in several years. Of course, the kids had already seen it, so I have seen it within the last 10 years. But it's always nice to go view it again. And I was stunned. It really looks great for a movie that's, 22 years old at this point. Some of the animation stuff isn't as smoothly integrated with the live action as it would be if it was done now. But considering the technological limitations of the time, it's an amazing piece of work. I'm sure all of you know this movie and remember it fondly. Bob Hoskins is great. Christopher Lloyd as Judge Doom is great. The animation, the way that Roger Rabbit is animated, the way that his wife Jessica is animated, the references and inclusions of all of these great historic icons from animation history, they're just fantastic. It's an incredible movie. What can I say? I love it every time I watch it. In doing my research for this, I did find out that I knew it was kind of like one of those stuck in development hell forever types of movies, but in doing my research, I did find out that apparently Terry Gilliam was offered the job of directing the movie and he turned it down. He's quoted as saying out of sheer laziness, and that he completely regrets that decision. So imagine that alternate timeline where Terry Gilliam directed Who Framed Roger Rabbit. Also, you could have had in your alternate timeline Harrison Ford as Eddie Valiant or Eddie Murphy as Eddie Valiant. Bizarre versions. And apparently Tim Curry auditioned for the role of Judge Doom, and the people who were watching the audition tapes thought he was too scary and it was just too much for the movie. So you could go ahead and put that one in your little alternate timeline as well. Pretty fun idea, right? Anyhow, we all know and love this movie. If you haven't seen it in a while, go back and watch it. If you haven't shown it to your kids, go ahead and watch it with them. It is a little adult for a cartoon-based movie, but nothing too bad in it. In fact, we went into too bad for kids territory next with our Cinema Club viewing. The kids have been bugging me to watch Rob Zombie's horror movies for a little while now, so I said, okay, we can tackle some of those this week, but first, we needed to watch The Hills Have Eyes from 1977, directed by Wes Craven, because they've already seen Texas Chainsaw Massacre, but they hadn't seen The Hills Have Eyes, and I feel like you need to see both of those before you dive into the whole House of a Thousand Corpses, Devil's Rejects universe, because they're so heavily influenced by these movies. So we went ahead and watched The Hills Have Eyes. It is Wes Craven's second or maybe third movie. I might have that wrong. He had done Last House on the Left first, and then he did Hills Have Eyes as his follow-up to that. I think there might be another one in there, though. Somebody correct me if I'm wrong. Anyhow, it's a story about a family going on a road trip. It's like 3 generations of family, including their dogs, and they get stuck out in the desert and attacked by an evil cannibal family from the hills who just wants to eat them. In doing my research on this one, I found out that it is Wes Craven's interpretation of the Hansel and Gretel story, which I thought was so cool because you have these naive sort of folks who find themselves out in the wilderness and they're being pursued by a cannibalistic antagonist. And then they, without saying too many spoilers, use some tricks and traps and treachery of their own to defend themselves, let's say. So that's pretty interesting parallels with the Hansel and Gretel story. And I love the Hansel and Gretel story myself. So, it's a really fun kind of read on that situation. It's a great movie. It's weird. It's often overlooked for the ones that came later in its own franchise, as these things kind of happen. Totally recommended if you are a horror fan and have never seen it. It's great. Really, really fun, weird pacing, and kind of the way the story unfolds is really fun. And then when the ending happens, it's just like, whoa! And you don't really have like a lot of, there's not like a kind of drawn out reaction time thing happening at the end of the movie. So it's pretty cool. But again, if you're not a horror person, I would stay away from that one. And I would definitely stay away from the next 2 on our list, which are House of a Thousand Corpses and The Devil's Rejects, both directed by Rob Zombie. House of a Thousand Corpses is 2003. Devil's Rejects is 2005. Of course, there's a third movie in this trilogy, but it didn't come out until just a couple of years ago. So I'm kind of treating these 2 as their own piece together. And then I'm actually a little Rob Zombied out this week, so we might wait a little bit while before we check out 3 from Hell. But I wanted to give the kids kind of as their dip into the films of Rob Zombie. We actually watched the music video for Dragula first because they didn't even know who he is as a musician. So that was pretty fun, and they thought that video was pretty fun. And then it was really neat to kind of view that as the short before screening House of a Thousand Corpses, and be able to see really the similarities between those 2 films, I guess. And, a music video is just a short film. House of a Thousand Corpses definitely feels like a long format extended Rob Zombie music video, except that Rob himself is not in it, of course. Sid Haig as Captain Spaulding, of course, steals the show of the entire movie. Bill Moseley is incredible as well. Lots of other good performances from other people, but the 2 of them together just basically make the whole movie. It does have these kind of choppy cutscenes in between the main narrative of the movie that really make it feel like a music video. They're interesting, but they kind of wore on me, and they felt really out of place, and I was glad in the second movie he didn't utilize that style because it really felt... it just was jarring. It's like you'd be watching just the typical sort of narrative pace of the movie, and then suddenly there'd be this other treatment with different music and different visual styling, and it clearly was this sort of jump out of what you were just viewing as the regular narrative of the story. The music in the first movie is done by Rob Zombie. He scores it himself. In the second one, he instead does this kind of Southern Fried Rock soundtrack, which it's kind of cool. It's kind of disruptive at times, but it really works at other times in Devil's Rejects. The 2 movies are interestingly similar, but also pretty different. In the first movie, it's kind of your typical horror fare of, some young adults or going out on a trip across America to investigate like roadside attractions, and they make it to Captain Spaulding's I can't remember what it's called, but it's like a museum of horrors or museum of weird stuff that he's running. And they go in to like check that out and see what's up. And then of course, get attacked and mayhem ensues. And will they survive to the end? I don't know. And I'm not going to tell you because I don't like to spoil movies like that. But that's the tone of the first movie. The tone of the second one, it's less... It's more horrifying and like less cartoonish than the first one. And it also reads more like a detective show on TV where the detectives are, going after the grisliest murderers of all time, only like flipped on its head because you're following the grisliest murderers of all time instead of tagging along with the detectives for this one. It's very over the top. It's very gory. It's very sexualized. It's got a lot of, content that feels like it's just trying to be extreme or edgy. And I get it. That's Rob Zombie's thing. But it definitely has that tone to it. But it also has really good writing, really good acting, good character development. It's funny. It's this very splattery, almost torture porn, extreme horror movie, but it also is just a really quality movie. It's got a good narrative structure. It's got, like I said, good acting, developed characters. I don't want to say I care about the characters because they're this horrendous family of murderers. But it's not like you don't care about them, right? So it's great. They're both great. I think that the second one, Devil's Rejects, is better than the first one, but the first one really has some interesting things about it. Again, in the second one, I feel like Sid Haig and Bill Moseley really just carry the whole movie, but everyone else does a really good job too. So if you like extreme horror, if you like being shocked by things, if you like interesting, different visual takes on things, if you're a fan of Rob Zombie's music, and for some reason you haven't seen these movies, check them out. You're definitely going to like them. If you don't like horror or you're squeamish in any way, completely avoid these movies. They are definitely wrong for you. So yeah, that's our take on those Rob Zombie movies. And like I said, we might come back and check out Three from Hell, but I think I need a little break from it just to sort of palate cleanse there. So speaking of totally different from Rob Zombie movies, we ended the week with one of my favorites. Last night we watched Forbidden Zone from 1982, directed by Richard Elfman. That is Danny Elfman's brother. This is an amazing art film made way back in the early 80s. They were doing the Mystic Knights of the Oingo Boingo. It was actually the predecessor to Oingo Boingo, the band. And they were sort of, a cabaret-style musical theater troupe that would put on live performances, and they wanted to make a crazy movie together. And so they came up with this bizarre story about a family that has a doorway into the Forbidden Zone, or the sixth dimension, in their basement. And they go in there, and of course, mayhem ensues. It is an incredible movie. If you guys have never seen Forbidden Zone, please, 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 please watch it. It is really out there. It's like a championship level art house, art student film. It's a musical. The score is by Danny Elfman. He's in the movie as Satan and does an incredible rendition of Minnie the Moocher with the rest of the Mystic Knights of the Oingo Boingo backing him up. But the whole thing is it's an incredible piece. It is the art direction, the sets, the way the story is told, the music, everything is just unbelievable and totally strange in this movie. It is just the weirdest movie. In the Forbidden Zone, the king and queen are played by Hervé Villechaize, of course, the famous little person from Fantasy Island and other movies that you've seen him in, no doubt. And the queen is played by Susan Terrell, famous actress. She's incredible in this. She's such a horrendous bitch. She's so awfully wonderful. She sings this great song about being hatched out of a witch's egg, which is one of my favorite songs of all time. It's so weird and wild and great. And she's like running around just being insane in the whole movie, and like her titties are falling out of her dress, and she's having sex with her husband, the king, who she's 3 times the size of, and all sorts of other things are going on. I don't want to say too much, as usual, about how the movie unfolds plot-wise, but it's just incredible. It's literally unbelievable. The first time I watched this movie, I was sitting there probably the whole time just like, what is this movie? This is incredible. So please check this movie out. Hilariously, we watched it yesterday, April 18th, and at the very beginning of the movie, they give you the little place setting, and it takes place on Friday, April 17th. So, missed it by one day. Maybe mark your calendars for next year. Maybe watch it sooner than that. I've seen it in black and white and color. It's great both ways. Just 1,000% recommended, especially if you want kind of like a peek into our brains and like how Goblin Co. does our thing. It's definitely one of those like tip-top recommended total weirdness movies that were super influential and inspirational and just made us go, wow, think about all these different crazy possibilities for things you could do and ways you could express yourself. I love it, in case that's not totally obvious. So, The Forbidden Zone, highly recommended. The most recommended movie that we saw this week. You guys should definitely see it if you've never seen it. If you watch it because of my review, please, please, please comment or email me or let me know what you think of it, because I love this movie so much and it's so weird and it's so amazing. All right. That's it for now. I have no idea what we're going to be watching in the next week. Jimmy has really gotten into the idea of clowning, and so I'm kind of on this idea about showing him some famous clown movies. I'm not sure what that's going to be, but we have had The Greatest Show on Earth on our list for a while, so that might be a fun one to throw into any kind of clown movie mix. What are you guys watching this week? What did you watch this last week? What have you got plans on watching coming up? I'm always so curious to find out. Of course, we are also quickly making our way through Ozark and Handsome Siblings on Netflix still. Both of those are recommended for totally different reasons, but I'm not going to review either one until we're done with the series. So that's it for me for today. I hope you guys are all staying well and not going crazy in your self-isolation. I will see you again in a couple days for another episode of my vlog. Until then, take care and thanks for watching.